Hi, this is Richard Murray. I have been asked by some various people if I would consider doing some videos, short video snippets, because I know I do a lot of posting on Facebook, and I know that sometimes writing words by themselves are difficult. You know, that's one of the whole points of the Bible thing is that you know 90% of what comes across a lot of times is nonverbal, and us learning to pick up the spiritual, the spiritual tone of things. So at any rate, we're going to see if these videos fly at all, and if they do, I'll have to keep trying to do them in short snippets. The first topic, and I posted on this the other day, but I thought it might be a good place to start, is on this idea of where did the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in Eden come from? Why is it there? Why was the tree there? A lot of children ask this question in particular. I've had a child ask me before, well, why would God put that tree in the garden knowing that Adam would eat of it? I mean, why just keep it out of the garden? That way he would never die. Well, obviously, the answer to most every question like that is free will, understanding that God, being a loving creator, imparts free will to us, but that means that he advocates control or coercion over us. God is not a coercive God. Love does not coerce. There are no reality rapes, is what I like to call them, no reality rapes in the divine nature. So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is all about boundaries. God gives us freedom, but whenever there's freedom, there has to be a boundary. Wisdom imparts boundary notifications. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a boundary that God warned us to not misuse our freedom by going beyond that boundary. So he didn't put the tree there to eat, for us to eat. He put it there for us not to eat. And eating, whether it's a metaphor, an allegory, or whatever, that tree is the boundary that we're not to go beyond. To go beyond that means we misuse our freedom. And when we misuse our freedom, we tend to then lose our freedom. And we become enslaved to something else. And that's what happened when Isaiah speaks about us making a covenant with death. We made a covenant with Satan because we believed a fundamental lie about God. And let me put it this way. For us to be able to escape God, we have to believe a lie about God, because if we truly saw God as he was, he's irresistible. His beauty is irresistible. His goodness is irresistible. His virtue is irresistible. There's no way to escape him. He's only good. Who would want to escape him? So in order for there to be a divergence from him, a separation from him, we have to believe a fundamental lie about him. And I believe that the fundamental lie that Satan lured us, and that he himself believes, to a degree, or at least from a certain angle, is the knowledge of good and evil. So what is the knowledge of good and evil? The knowledge of good and evil says that God is the author of both good and evil, that he is the author of both light and dark, that he is the author of both love and wrath. So that if we know God that way, and what I want to propose is that is a false way to know God. But if we choose to view God that way, then we have a built-in excuse that we can pull away our heart from him. Because gosh, if he's the unknowable, and there's fear there, and there's wrath there, and bless the Lord who may love me today but slay me tomorrow, as Job said, we can pull away from that image of God. We can't ever justify pulling away from the image of God that's on the tree of life, which I would propose is Jesus, because Jesus is life, and he is love, and he is perfection, and he is virtue. So, hey, when all the cards are out on the table with the tree of life, man, there's nowhere to go but to him. But when we misuse our freedom and then start believing falsehoods about God, then we can justify departing from God. And what happened to Adam when he ate of that tree? What's the first thing he did? He runs and he hides. He hides because he now is scared of God. He's told himself a lie which he believes, and Satan has had input into that lie. But he tells himself a lie which he has believed, so now he's justified to go hide behind the bushes, and fearing that God is a wrathful ruler that's going to come and destroy him. So, but you understand that that's a way for us to justify being separate from him, being apart from him. So, at any rate, the knowledge of good and evil is a boundary tree. You know, not all vegetation is meant to be eaten. Some vegetation is useful for other things, for photosynthesis, for boundaries. There's boundary brushes that are good, that may have poisonous vegetation, but they're there for boundaries, to set boundaries between whatever, forests or deserts or whatever. They're boundary trees. But they're not meant to be consumed. And what I would say is that even though God created the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that it's a boundary tree. It's not a tree that's meant to be partaken of. But we partook of it because we misused our freedom, because we believed a lie about Satan, which is the only way that we can escape into our own will, by justifying that God is both good and evil. And I would argue that that is what the Old Testament saints all did. They all believed that both good and evil came from God's hand, that both light and dark came from His hand. And when you believe that, then you have an unknowable God. You have a God that may love you today and smite you tomorrow. So that justifies you staying back and kind of hiding behind the mysterious will of God. We don't know what He'll do. And then you find yourself, when you pray to Him, you pray to a God that may or may not help you. All right. Well, he may say yes, he may say no. So there's no rebuking of Satan in that kind of prayer. There's only prayer that begs God, God, please, you don't smite me. You don't afflict me. You don't destroy me. Whereas we know that the New Testament prayer is, no, Jesus protects me. Satan, I rebuke you and command you to depart from me. All right. So that's the difference between the two. Jesus didn't operate in the knowledge of good and evil. He operated from the tree of life. And the tree of life is in John 10:10. Jesus said, I came to give life, and that they might have life abundantly. But the thief, who is Satan, comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So if we can just get that and understand that, that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was not put there for us to partake of, it was put there for us to not partake of, but as a warning that this is an area that freedom necessarily creates. An area where you can go and think what you want to think. You can say no to God. You can walk in your own self-will. You can choose to believe a lie about God. But if you do, then you cross past this boundary. But the danger is, if you cross past that boundary, you subject yourself to the power of Satan, and you enter into a covenant of death with him. And then he starts manipulating your thoughts. So all we've got to do, all this by way of saying that the first Adam believed a fundamental lie about God. The second Adam was the fundamental truth about God. So if we'll see Jesus, that Jesus did not operate in the knowledge of good and evil. He saw his Father as only light. He was a Father of lights. Only good comes from his hand. Only blessing comes from his hand. Only protection comes from his hand. If we can get that image of God, then we can get back into the garden, back into our original mindset, to where we're postured toward believing the best about God instead of believing the worst. So, at any rate, I hope this blessed you, and if it does, and there's a good response to this, I'll keep doing this, and I welcome however this gets posted. I'm going to have to honestly even get my sons to help me to post this, because I've never posted a video in my life, but I'll try to get it posted, and if you have questions, we'll go on from there, and if this is well received, then we'll keep doing it. Thank you, and God bless.